flights, the hotels, so the entertainment that you will be going for, how long the vacation is. And then also you have to cater the entertainment program or the hotel needs to the individual specific, right? Everyone has a different dietary needs and everyone has different liking. So all these things can become a challenging thing if it's not been planned properly.
Okay, so we got to make sure that we do this holistic, this total approach to retirement planning, make sure we involve everybody and not necessarily go and cover one, but not all the bases. I like that example that you used about the travel planning, because too often it's so tempting to save a few dollars here and there and go to those budget websites, plan it all yourself. You're in the vacation and something goes wrong. Well, who do you call at that point?
Yeah, you're correct. You're absolutely correct. So those are the two examples. The wedding planner or the vacation will be the good thing. So in the retirement planning also what we see is people go to a specialist and they get an isolated planning, right? You usually, when you're thinking about retirement or you are in retirement, very first thing comes to finances. You may go to some financial planner, get all your finances in row. You may go to some attorney to get your estate planning, wills, trust, and all these things in together. But if those things are not coordinated, on top of that, your housing and the healthcare needs, then you are leaving lots of gaps and holes. That's what we see when the clients come first time to our office. There are lots of gaps and holes, and we try to educate them and try to see how we can cover those gaps and holes in their planning.
So, Rajiv, for our friend listening on the other side of the speaker who maybe doesn't have time to stick around for the full show today, can we send them to a website where they can reach out and maybe make an appointment to come in, visit you at LifePoint Law, and get more information and really start this approach so they have a calling card, so to speak?
You're correct. So it means like you can go to lifepointlaw.com and there is a tab. There are two ways people can reach. Either you can make a direct appointment where you don't want to spend too much time. You will be talking to some professional at the law firm. They can help answer your question and get you starting on the process. Or you can attend one of our monthly seminars where you can get a little bit more education, and from there you can start the process.
We have lots of topics to cover on the show today, and we're going to start that in just a moment. If you have a question you'd like to ask Saket, call us 206-421-1000. The lines are open at 206-421-1000. The buck doesn't stop here. Hi, this is Brian Calvert, letting you know that you can learn more by going to AgingOptions.com for blogs, videos, and the Aging Options portal. Visit AgingOptions.com for blogs, videos, and the Aging Options portal.
You know, I'm not a wealthy person, but I'd like to leave a little something to my kids when I'm gone.
Actually, there's someone who gets first shot at your assets when you die, before your kids can even touch them. The tax collector and creditors.
I don't know much about estate and inheritance taxes. I've heard about changes in tax laws, but it's a little complicated, so I just try not to worry about it.
Far too often, the cost of probate and estate taxes forces children to sell off their parents' assets, leaving little for them.
I'd at least like for them to have this house. After all, they grew up here, and we'd like to keep it in the family. They say you can't take it with you. I just didn't realize it was the tax collector who said it.
The elder law attorneys at LifePoint Law understand probate and estate taxes. They know how to protect your assets and your legacy. You can trust LifePoint Law and Rajiv Nagaich. Call 877-ELDER-47. That's 877-ELDER-47.
Northwest News Radio traffic sponsored by Northwest Crawl Space Services.
Still some big backups northbound on I-5 between the West Seattle Bridge and I-90 as folks are squeezing down into the express lanes to get through the work zone in downtown Seattle. Northbound I-5 through lanes have to use the express lanes to get through across the Ship Canal. You can exit into downtown using Dearborn Street or Madison or James Street to get into downtown Seattle. Westbound I-90, that off-ramp onto northbound I-5 is also shut down. You'll need to exit either onto southbound I-5 or onto Edgar Martinez Drive to get into downtown. Northbound I-5, or northbound 405 rather, is also slow through Renton. This is also affecting the off-ramp from northbound I-5 onto I-405 at South Center as folks are trying to get onto that off-ramp to avoid I-5 through downtown. So just plan on some extra time as you're heading through South Center. Either way you go, you'll probably run into a little bit more backups than you're expecting at this time of the morning. In the Northwest News Radio Traffic Center, I'm Brian White.
Now, back to Aging Options, right here on Northwest News Radio.
Great to have you with us this morning. Brian Calvert sitting in for Rajiv. Saket Sengar is also with me. Saket, we have a bunch of things to talk about this morning. One of the things we want to make sure that our listeners on the other side of the speaker know is that you can call, ask your questions about retirement planning anytime. The lines are open at 206-421-1000. I know that there is a point of life, and it probably arrives at different times for different people, where you get you're tired of working, and you know, I think there are just as many younger people as older people like, okay, I don't want to work anymore. But the fact is, we all have to put in our careers. We have to you know, do our time, make sure that we're making our money, make sure that we're also saving as well. But we're also dreading retirement because maybe we didn't actually save or we didn't plan the way we should. What are those options? What should we be considering if we really are tired of working and don't want to do that anymore? We've arrived at that point in life where it's like, okay, maybe it's time to retire.
Actually, that's a great topic to start with. And I think that's the first story that Tony, our producer, has put on for this week. If you can go to listeners can go to AgingOptions.com, and then they can check out of the blog. And the very first story is fear of retirement, delayed retirement, or phased retirement. And if you read the story, which I did, and if you listen to what author means, if you think about what author is saying in the story is, it's not about the money. Retirement is more than about money. People are afraid in retirement of boredom or loneliness, or sometimes people get depression if you retire early. So what the story is talking about is when you retire, and first of all, yes, we need to do some planning around finances, but beyond finances, we need to make sure what's your purpose, because you will have a long retirement to live in. You will still have 24 hours to spend. While you're working, at least you have work life, and it's much easier because you have work stress and other things, other projects to work with. So the time flies. But once your kids are out of house, you're retired, now you're sitting at home, you and your spouse, and 24 hours to spend. If you don't have a purpose to wake up to, you will start feeling boredom, you will start feeling isolated. So we need to think about how are you going to spend time. So if you look at this article has done some good job about, like it's giving you some suggestions how you can spend the time. And common things that I hear from our clients is they like to volunteer, whatever they are passionate about it. Some even clients have gone to part-time job. If they are very passionate, they were expert in certain things, they can utilize their knowledge and skill and help people. They can even go and tutor in their high school in the community, where they can teach the young kids about the skills and the life lessons they have learned that kids can learn beyond the books they are learning in school. And there are a few things. One of the interesting things the article talks about seniors being influencers. We talk about using social media. All the influencers are pretty young people, those who are not only influencing, but they're also making money. Here, the article is talking about seniors using their knowledge and expertise and try to use social media to become influencer, not to make money, but to help pass on that education that they have learned to the younger generation. So these are the few things I will say.
I love the idea that the author brings up about passing on what you've learned in life to the next generation. How in the world are we going to get the group of kids coming up underneath us to at least be aware of the same values, the same experiences that we had, if we're not willing to at least show and hold their hands along the way? I think that's really key. And reaching them. We have this argument in my house all the time about the amount of time we spend on social media, the amount of time we spend in digital assets. And we finally come to the conclusion that's how people communicate these days. In 2025, people communicate online. They do it through social media. They do it through texting. They do it in this digital way. If you're not having a conversation where people are talking, your voice is not being heard. And so to talk seniors who have had this wealth of life experience into channeling that experience into some of these, and technology can be intimidating, trust me. But to share some of those experiences along the way, I think that could be pretty powerful, and that could really battle some of that loneliness you were just talking about.
Yes. We should ask our listeners. If you are retired or you are, how are you spending your days? other than things that you do for the day-to-day living? Do you have a passion project that you deal with it? How you spend? So I think we should invite some callers. And
I think that's a great idea. How are you spending your retirement, and are you doing a few things to help bring up the next generation? We'd love to get your ideas, because we know that there are people listening saying, oh yeah, this sounds all well and good, but I don't know where to start. Give us a call, 206-421-1000, 206-421-1000. Saket, as people are planning for that, you mentioned loneliness as well. I would imagine that there are just a number of people who, because of the circumstance, they're in their house and they feel alone, and they feel like they can't get out. They don't have the power to get out. What do you say to empower them to get out there and to get plugged in to their communities? Does the author address that at all?
Particular article, if I read it, but I will tell you from my own client experiences. When I'm talking to my clients, like giving an example, this is where the housing decision, another article that we have is on housing. Should you rent and buy? That's much more of a financial question. But I will say this is where the housing will be coming in picture from my perspective. In retirement, housing is a least planned for, but it requires much more thoughtful planning, I will say. What I want to mean is people don't plan about housing. They if you ask the question is, where do you want to live for the rest of your life? Most of the people will say in the house that they are living in, as long as they can. But the question is, what do you mean by as long as they can? Means as long as your health is there, you want to live there. But if your health fails, then you will think about moving. So if you have a good housing plan where you have a good connection within the community, you can do a lot of good in the community, get to know, whether it's through volunteer activities, whether it's through spending your time. Like giving an example, my mom, who lives by herself, she is in the same house where we grew up. She has a lot of good social connections. So whenever she comes to us during summer or other breaks, she's not there to spend a lot of time. She will spend maybe a week or 2 weeks, but she wants to get back to the house that she lived in because she has so much social connection that she likes to spend time over there. So that's what I will be saying.
That's a really interesting concept. And you know what, Saket, you are a master of the radio segue, as we call it. That's the transition between topics, because you just brought it up. Should you rent or buy? What's the best option in retirement? We're going to talk about that as Aging Options continues here on Northwest News Radio. Give us a call, 206-421-1000. We'll be right back.
Northwest News Radio traffic, sponsored by Northwest Crawl Space Services.
Still plenty of backups northbound on I-5 between the West Seattle Bridge and I-90 as folks are squeezing down into the work zone to get into the express lanes to move through downtown. And once you're in those express lanes, you can't exit from them until you're across the Ship Canal and up toward 50th Street on the north side of downtown. Southbound traffic on I-5 looks okay through downtown. You're in good shape, but you won't be able to use the express lanes. Those are flipped to northbound, and that's semi-permanent for the next few weeks while that work is going on across the Ship Canal Bridge. Northbound I-5 at Highway 18 and Federal Way, there's a stalled vehicle in the right lane. Doesn't look like it's causing much of a problem, but you will see the flashing lights on the right side of the road. Further up northbound I-5 approaching 405 at South Center, there's some squeezed-in traffic trying to use that off-ramp to northbound 405 to avoid I-5 through the work zone, and then 405 northbound is seeing heavier than usual traffic from 167 up toward I-90. In the Northwest News Radio Traffic Center, I'm Brian White.
You're listening to Aging Options on Northwest News Radio. Here's elder law attorney Rajiv Nagaich.
Rajiv has the morning off. Saket Sengar is here. I'm Brian Calvert. This is Aging Options. We have all kinds of things we're talking about this morning to help you get the most out of your retirement planning. Aging Options is your kind of one-stop shop, as we've discovered this hour, when it comes to making those plans. Before we get too much further, who's the third wheel in our club today, Saket?
Welcome, Alec. Why don't you introduce your own self?
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Alec. I'm the video producer over at Aging Options, do all the YouTube videos and everything. And every week we try to live stream the radio show to YouTube. So if you want to throw the show up on your TV or just pull it up on your phone, or if you want to watch it later, you can't hang out this morning for the whole time, but you want to catch everything that Saket shares this week or Rajiv next week, you can go to youtube.com and find Aging Options. Just search Aging Options. We'll come right up. And you can find the live stream right now, or you can find the archive of all the live streams anytime you want.
I just take one issue with this, Alec. I got into radio for a reason. I have a face for radio. You're telling me I'm on YouTube right now?
That's right. So if you want to see what Brian's talking about, you got to come over to YouTube.
Or you don't want to see it, it's okay. You can just look at Saket. He's much more handsome than I am. Alec, it's great to have you with us in the studio today. Saket, before we went to the last traffic break there, we brought up a big question, and this is one of your articles of the week. As we enter retirement and we're able to live on our own, do we rent? Do we buy? What's the smart choice when it comes to planning?
So again, if you read this article, or if I encourage the listeners to go and read this article, this is purely a financial question. Should you buy or should you rent in retirement? And that question doesn't only come up in retirement. That is a question that, give an example. These days, people even have the question, while you're working, should you rent or buy, or should you now, the new phenomena I'm listening from clients, should I even buy a car or should I lease a car, because leasing a car is much more economical. So that's a financial question, and it will be based on each and every individual's needs. But I would like to expand that conversation a little bit more. Once we can, and I can help the clients make that financial choice. But when it comes to housing, especially in retirement, the one question that we asked all the clients, close your eyes and think you are living in retirement for 30 years. This is the house that you will live in? And most of the clients will say, yes, this is the house we will live in. But the question will be as long as, most of the answers are as long as they can. So when I try to explore what do you mean by that, the question, the story that they share is, as long as our health is okay with us, we are happy to live in there. But if our health fails, we are open to moving. So think about it from a perspective. Right now, you're close to in 60s or mid 60s when you're thinking about retirement, and you will be living, let's say, in 90s, and now you're between 80 or 90 years old. At that time, if your health fails and you are exploring, or you're thinking, now I cannot live in this house, I have to move. Think from that perspective how hard it will be on you to move. And the other thing is, if you are a married couple, okay, that's fine. You lived in this house in retirement. Let's say in the mid 80s, if you lose one of the spouse and now you're by yourself, how tough that will be to move at that time. Or can you imagine to live in the same house, in the big house that you're living in? So there are a lot of things people don't even think about when it comes to retirement. And like I said, housing is one of those least planned for, but it has the most important piece to the entire retirement planning. So we need to spend more time debating or talking about it, where you will be living in, how far your family lives from you, because if you need some help, will they be able to come and help you, or you're relying on extended family members, what that picture looks like. So it's just more than about renting or buying a house, because that's a financial question. We can answer that thing easily, but beyond financial, there is a lot more that we need to uncover in the housing decision.
Saket, there's a lot of logical decision-making when it comes to planning for your retirement and planning for a prosperous retirement. But I can't help but to think of the amount of emotional turmoil that one has to go through. I mean, just in this housing experience, this is the house that I raised my kids in. This is the house that I was with my partner for X amount of years. My partner may not be with me. There's a lot of emotional attachment to this house. That's got to be a hard thing to navigate as you're planning for the future, I would imagine.
So I can tell you stories after stories. I help the clients in this arena. And to give you my own example of my parents, like after retirement, my parents, they came from this small town and they just wanted to go back and live in that small town. So that was good. And that was their decision. I cannot stop them. But my father passed away 3 years before, and my mom is still there. And I know she lives by herself. It's very hard. We are always worried about her safety, and she's been living alone. But she always comes back and said, I understand that you're feeling that no one is living close by. but this is the place she finds the happiness. So sometimes you have to think about risk versus happiness, and that's what her choice.
Okay. It's a lot to navigate, and why not navigate it with people you can trust there at LifePoint Law? We're going to talk more with Saket in just a few moments. If you want to call in, 206-421-1000 is the number to call. Aging Options continues in just moments here on Northwest.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. Los Angeles police looking for whoever shot a driver who crashed a car into a crowd of people in East Hollywood around 2 in the morning. Police say people in the crowd dragged out and beat up the driver. 23 people were taken to hospital as well as the driver. No word on his condition or the reason why it happened. Los Angeles Fire Department Captain Adam Van Gerpen.
We saw a large number of traumatic injuries. So these are injuries that are associated with being struck by a vehicle. So we had broken bones, we had soft tissue injuries.
Officers say the gunman ran away. Sound of plane-to-tower radios released to the pilot of a SkyWest flight this week that made an emergency landing in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, saying that right now there's a fight with the flight attendant with a man trying to open the emergency exit. A 23-year-old facing possible federal charges. Developing tragedy, a tourist boat flipped over during a thunderstorm in Vietnam. Over 30 people dead. This is ABC News.
You're connected with Northwest News Radio, 97.7 AM 1000. When you need to know, Northwest News Radio, 97.7 AM 1000. Now, this hour's top local stories with Tim Hull.
A fast-moving wildfire in the Columbia River Gorge near Bingen, Washington has triggered Level 3 go-now evacuations for areas east of town along SR 14. That fire broke out Friday afternoon and has burned about 1,200 acres. Gusty winds are fanning the flames. Klickitat County has declared a state of emergency, and water drops are being used to slow the fire's spread. A tanker truck crashed off Highway 101 and into Indian Creek near Port Angeles Friday morning. The truck driver went to the hospital as a safety measure after reportedly suffering a medical emergency before the crash. The creek feeds the Elwha River, which is a critical salmon habitat. A driver on I-90 in Seattle was nearly hit by a cement block thrown at his car Friday morning. Sherman Walker saw the man toss the block near Rainier Avenue South around 4:30. It hit his car, but he wasn't hurt. The suspect fled before police arrived. State Patrol is asking for dash cam video to help identify the suspect. Walker calls it a dangerous attack and wants that person arrested. An 18-year-old man with a felony warrant fled from police in Tumwater and crashed into multiple cars at a busy intersection on Friday. A 70-year-old woman was critically injured. Police found the suspect asleep in a stolen vehicle. When officers tried to arrest him, he drove off and crashed. The woman's car was pushed into a building. She was airlifted to Harborview Medical Center in critical condition. People in a second vehicle had minor injuries, and no one in the building was hurt. The suspect fled on foot but was quickly caught. He was processed for DUI and booked into jail. The vehicle was a stolen GMC Denali taken during a July 10th carjacking in Tukwila, though police don't know if this suspect was involved in that theft. Some low clouds this morning, otherwise a mostly sunny Saturday afternoon, highs low to mid-70s. Sunday, partly sunny, highs low 70s. Monday, a few showers, then sunshine with highs in the 70s. I'm Tim Hull, Northwest News Radio.
Northwest Crawl Space Services.
Still, things are looking about the same on northbound I-5, and that's, well, not great news, but at least it's not terrible news because you are slow between the West Seattle Bridge and I-90, but it hasn't really gotten that much worse over the last little while. You'll run into some backups, though, for sure. It'll cost you an extra 5 minutes or so moving up from South Center into downtown. Expect that drive to take about 20 minutes. Northbound 405 definitely slowing down from 167 up to Sunset Boulevard, moving through Renton. That's normal traffic, plus traffic trying to avoid I-5 through downtown. Watch out for a stalled vehicle northbound on I-5 before Highway 18 and Federal Way, blocking the right lane. If you stay over to the left, you should be able to get through there okay. It might tap the brakes a little bit, but it won't cost you too much of an issue. And southbound I-5 moving into downtown doesn't look too bad. That's not affected by the northbound closure, and everything's rolling smoothly. 20 minutes your drive time between Everett and downtown Seattle. In the Northwest News Radio Traffic Center, I'm Brian White.
Need help? You've come to the right place. Welcome back to Aging Options on Northwest News Radio.
Well, it's great to have you with us here on Aging Options this week. I'm Brian Calvert. Rajiv has the day off. Saket Sengar is in his place. Saket, as we work our way through the show this week, one of the ways that you reach out and help an awful lot of people there at Aging Options is through your seminar. And last week, when I was with Rajiv on the show, he was going right from Aging Options to the seminar that you had down in Federal Way last week. And these seminars are really a way to kind of get up close and personal with all of the services that you guys provide there at LifePoint Law, right?
You're correct. So the seminars are being hosted and promoted by LifePoint Law. So this is like Rajiv has been on the radio for almost 20 years now, and he's been very well known in the community. Most of the time when people call in to see if they can see Rajiv, it's very hard to get his appointment. So one of the ways that he gives back into the community is by hosting these educational events. And an educational event is also a way for people to get to know him, get to know a little bit LifePoint Law and what we talk and how we approach the planning. Like I mentioned to you, we talk about retirement planning, and retirement planning is more than about just the finances, right? Because people, when you're talking to an attorney's office, people will have estate planning. They have basic questions: should I get a will? Should I get a trust? Should I have a power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney? What's a durable power of attorney? What's an immediate power of attorney? These are basic legal questions, and they can easily be answered by any attorney or law firm. Rajiv does something called life planning, what he calls, or in my humble opinion, it's much more advanced planning. He makes people think about scenarios that people have not even thought about it. In one way, Rajiv is always about legal, just purely legal planning is about dying. It's like, okay, if I have a will and trust, why do you get a will and trust? So that my heirs will inherit once I'm dead and gone, or power of attorney, right? So these are all legal documents. People should have it. I'm not discouraging it, but it's all focused on die planning. So his purely focus is on how people should be living in retirement. And retirement, like I said, it's an unphased, unknown, a long 30-year time. Once people are retired, because the longevity is much more bigger now, and we go through various phases and we come up with various issues in retirement, and no one is talking and no one is planning. Like I just mentioned about housing, that was the one issue. So in seminars, Rajiv not only talks about legal issues, financial issues, healthcare issues, housing issues people need to be thinking about. So that's the first step in a planning process, to go and get yourself education, things that you have already done, things that you are not even thinking about it, what are the gaps and holes in your planning. And at least once you get yourself educated, then if you like who we are, what kind of a work we do it, as a person, how we interact with people, then you can certainly make an appointment and go and see one of the attorneys at the law firm. Or if not, then you can certainly reach out. If you're just purely focused on finances, then you can make an appointment with Better Financial Services. That's the part of the firm that I work with, and then we can start the planning process. So that's how that planning process works.
Now, I know you just had a seminar last week. Do you know the date of the next one coming up?
We do these seminars every month. So the seminars for the month of July are done. So if people are looking, they can go to lifepointlaw.com. And on the right-hand side, there are the upcoming seminars for the month of August. So the first one starts on August 2nd. It's in Olympia. The second one is in Puyallup. That's on August 5th. Then we do have a seminar in our campus in Federal Way. That's on August 7th. And the last one will be in Bellevue. That's on August 9th. So again, Olympia, Puyallup, Federal Way, and Bellevue. Those are the 4 locations that will be hosting seminars in the month of August, and these are all free seminars, so people can just go to LifePoint Law and register. Or if they don't want to, they can also call the office directly. The number to call is 253-838-3454. 253-838-3454.
You mentioned that the seminar is free, and I know that there's somebody listening right now who says, yeah, I went to a seminar one time and boy, they were trying to strong arm me into buying this and buying that. That's not what these gatherings are about.
No, like I said, you will have a very different experience when people come to our seminar. These are purely educational seminars. We are not selling any books or DVDs or anything. No one is strong arming anyone. These are done in a very nice locations, mostly in hotels where you can come and free to go. And like I said, there is no cost to attend the seminar. These are 2-hour purely educational seminar. And I will promise you, if you attend, you will have things to think about that you never even thought about it. And then it will change your perspective on how you should plan for your retirement and then go from there.
The seminars are really a good way to get to know the crew from LifePoint Law and get immersed in this world that is your retirement planning. Get that big picture that a lot of us will overlook because we'll be focused on either the financial aspect or the legal aspect or this or that, when you really have to take a look at the entire picture, don't you, Saket?
You're correct. Like I mentioned, retirement planning is more than finances. People focus when it comes to retirement, their focus is finances, their portfolio, their investment, which we can help. I can help with that. But retirement planning is much bigger than that. You have to think about healthcare. You need to think about housing. You need to think about legal issues. And most importantly, you need to think about how the family will work. Who are you going to be naming as your agents, whom you will be relying on your retirement to make the financial decision, healthcare decision? Are they educated enough? Like, give an example. One simple question Rajiv asked in the seminar is, how many people in retirement wants to go to a retirement community? Hardly anyone. Everyone wants to stay in their own home. But the reality is 70% of people in retirement will fail in retirement, or they will end up in some sort of a institutional care other than their own home. Why? The question is why, when no one wants to go there and 70% people end up going there. So the question is, there is a big gap, and that's the gap we try to educate and focus on it, how they can plan differently so they can have the outcomes that they want to achieve in retirement.
All right. Seminars are a great way to get information. If you have a question, of course, you can make an appointment at LifePoint Law, or we still have 20 minutes left in Aging Options this morning. You can call right now, 206-421-1000. The lines are open. If you have a question, especially something related to finances, that's Saket's wheelhouse. 206-421-1000. And because I have you here, Saket, what I wanted to ask you when we came back from the break is I'm really focused on finances because I know that that's what you do. And so I want to ask you about the nest egg. Is it too small? How do we know if it's big enough to get us into retirement? You want to talk about that next?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. We'll do it when Aging Option returns right after this. Hi, it's Brian Calvert thanking you for listening to Aging Options. For more great options to help guide your future, go to AgingOptions.com. That's AgingOptions.com. And select blogs under the free Learning Center tab. AgingOptions.com.
You know, I'm not a wealthy person, but I'd like to leave a little something to my kids when I'm gone.
Actually, there's someone who gets first shot at your assets when you die, before your kids can even touch them, the tax collector and creditors.
I don't know much about estate and inheritance taxes. I've heard about changes in tax laws, but it's a little complicated, so I just try not to worry about it.
Far too often, the cost of probate and estate taxes forces children to sell off their parents' assets, leaving little for them.
I'd at least like for them to have this house. After all, they grew up here, and we'd like to keep it in the family. They say you can't take it with you. I just didn't realize it was the tax collector who said it.
The elder law attorneys at LifePoint Law understand probate and estate taxes. They know how to protect your assets and your legacy. You can trust LifePoint Law and Rajiv Nagaich. Call 877-ELDER-47. That's 877-ELDER-47.
Northwest News Radio traffic sponsored by Northwest Crawl Space Services.
Still looking at heavy traffic northbound on I-5 between the West Seattle Bridge and I-90, where everyone's squeezing down into the express lanes to get through the work zone. And that closure of the through lanes is going to be in place until Monday morning before rush hour. And once it reopens, you're still only going to have 2 through lanes across the Ship Canal Bridge for the next few weeks. And northbound traffic will be allowed to use the express lanes 24/7. They will not be reversing the express lanes for southbound traffic. So keep that in mind for your morning drive, because those southbound express lanes will not be available to you to move into downtown on your normal morning commute. Northbound 405 definitely starting to back up now between 167 and Sunset Boulevard through Renton. Maybe an extra 2 or 3 minutes on that drive. Northbound I-5 a little bit slow approaching South Center, especially onto those ramps onto northbound 405. And looking at a little bit of heavy volume northbound on I-5 approaching a stalled vehicle before Highway 18 and Federal Way in the right lane. In the Northwest News Radio Traffic Center, I'm Brian White.
Now, back to Aging Options, right here on Northwest News Radio.
Brian Calvert, Saket, Sengar with you on Aging Options this Saturday morning as we talk about your retirement future. We want it to be a successful one. We want you to be fully taken care of. We want you to make plans now so that your later years are the best possible years you can have. Saket, in your work with LifePoint Law, and let me give out the phone numbers real quick if you have a question. It's 206-421-1000, 206-421-1000. You brought in an article today, and it talks about our nest egg. Everybody talks about, am I saving enough? Do I have that basis? Do I have that base of money that's going to help me get all the way through the end of my life here on this planet? How do you know if your nest egg is large enough?
So the thing, your nest egg is what nest egg is, right? I cannot do anything about increasing or decreasing it. So let me tell you in this way. So when a client comes in, if they are thinking about retirement or they are already retirement, whatever their nest egg is, through usually people may have accumulated through their 401ks, whether it's a 200,000, 400,000, whatever the nest egg is. Now I have that nest egg to work with. More important when people are, so when they come in, so my question becomes is I start with something called a tool that I use to help client make some decisions. It's called financial dashboard. In those dashboard, I create various scenarios. So very first question I try to help clients with, when should you retire? Do you have enough that you can retire today? Or do you need to work a couple of more years before you can pull the trigger? So that will be very first question, because the way the life is working with the medicine and advancement in medicine, people are living longer. So I'm trying to create scenarios. If you and your spouse are going to be living 30 years or 35 years in retirement, do you have enough nest egg today that will last till that thing, or will you run out of money sooner? So that will be the very first question that I help. And this is just a black and white, purely running some numbers. On top of that, the question is not about, to me, how much the nest egg is. To me is, what are your income sources? In retirement, people need income to meet their expenses, right? So I have to take a look at it. Do you have a pension? If you have a pension, that's good and great. If not, then the other sources of income, you will have a Social Security. And whatever the portfolio is, how your portfolio is invested, what kind of a rate of return that you need to earn on the portfolio so you can draw some income to meet your living expenses. That will be one issue. So purely financial, there are only 3 things. If you have a pension, if you have a Social Security, what kind of a planning that we do so that we can maximize your Social Security income. And regardless of how small or large your portfolio is, how you're invested so that we can draw some income to make sure your portfolio lasts before you run out of life. So those are the 3 things. But in addition to these 3 purely financial buckets that you can draw the income from, the article that you will read on this Aging Options blog today, it is listing certain other things that you can tap on for the income. One of the things that is not talked about it, but we can think about it, is called reverse mortgage. That's what it is. And I'm not talking about home line of credit. That has its own pluses and minuses, but for some retirees, if they have made the right housing decision, and if they had made sure this is the house they are going to be living in, and they have planned around it, so that when their health fails, they are not forced to move out, in those situations, in some situation, reverse mortgage may be the solution that they are not thinking about it. And like I said, I'm not a reverse mortgage expert, but if in this client situation, if the reverse mortgage is a better way to supplement the income, then we will bring a specialist who works in it and can help the client with that situation. The other things that people can take a look at it, like we are talking about the dreaded retirement, where people still have to spend 24 hours. So one of the other things is people are passionate about it. And I have seen with few of my clients, they go and take a part-time job. They are not working full-time. And it's not just to supplement the income. It does help, but it also to avoid that loneliness that they are dealing with at home, to keep their mind active and have some purpose. But if that purpose can also give them some income, that will be on top of that thing. So that's how I will answer that question for you.
So my takeaway is it doesn't necessarily matter the size of the nest egg. It's what you do with it that matters most.
You can plan. What I want to say is nest egg means there is nothing that I can, if you are close to retirement and whatever the nest egg you have accumulated, that's what it is. We want to make sure it's protected. That's what it is first. And then how we utilize that thing. So we need to run something called what if scenarios and try to come up with the strategies that will be better fit for your individual needs and then go from there.
And that's maybe the key of everything that we've talked about so far this hour, Saket, is a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. This really does come down to the individual. There's no cookie cutter approach that works for the masses. There's no one plan that works for everybody. Every situation is going to be very individualized, isn't it?
Absolutely. Means there is no cookie cutter solution. Means give an example. Sometimes I have my own plans. My wife has their own plans. She has a different thoughts about the whole thing. I'm comfortable investing in one type. So when I'm meeting with clients, I have to make sure if you're married, I'm trying to assess both of your risk. I'm trying to match both of your goals. And then when I'm presenting solution, it needs to both of the person has to sign off. And if you are a single person, we need to do a little bit more extra hand holding, because now in those situations, you are most of the time when I see if it's a married couple, it's easier to make decision because they can rely on each other. But with the individual client, sometimes they are a little bit more afraid because they don't have some other partner to talk to. So they are totally relying on me to help with the decision. So it is very personal. It's very customized solution to answer your question.
So let me ask you this, Saket. When you get put in that situation, I would imagine it's a case of, well, as I see it, these are the options you can take, and this may be the option that works best for you. But you have to be really careful when you're recommending for each client, don't you?
You're correct. And like I said, the tool that I use is called Financial Dashboard. So the Financial Dashboard is a tool which can help you. I'm not too much worried about when people come to from investment point of view. Hey, the markets are going up and down. What should I do? Because the market's tanked. Do I need to pull the money out? The way I answer that question is through the Financial Dashboard. Let's see what is the rate of it. What's the benchmark return that you need to earn on your portfolio that will give you the income that you need to meet all your expenses. As long as we are earning that benchmark of the rate of return, we should be confident in making decisions that we have made. And the goal is like with any business, any budgeting, we do these things every year, annual meetings, and we review the things, the goals that we decided, have we accomplished, how far we are from the benchmark return, are we over, are we under, and then regroup what we need to do to going forward. So the goal is about just coming to know what the rate of return that you need to earn your money and making sure that you are generating enough income to meet the expenses on your budgeting needs, and then go from there.
And all this starts with having a trusted partner as you plan for your successful retirement. And LifePoint Law wants to be that trusted partner. You can find out more on the website. LifePointLaw.com is where you go to make an appointment to find out about upcoming seminars. And we do have time for one question. If you want to be that one question before the show's over today, 206-421-1000 is the number to call. We'll be right back.
Northwest News Radio traffic sponsored by Northwest Crawl Space Services.
Still looking at heavy traffic northbound on I-5 between the West Seattle Bridge and I-90, where everyone's squeezing down into the express lanes to get through the work zone. And that closure of the through lanes is going to be in place until Monday morning before rush hour. And once it reopens, you're still only going to have 2 through lanes across the Ship Canal Bridge for the next few weeks. And northbound traffic will be allowed to use the express lanes 24/7. They will not be reversing the express lanes for southbound traffic. So keep that in mind for your morning drive, because those southbound express lanes will not be available to you to move into downtown on your normal morning commute. Northbound 405 definitely starting to back up now between 167 and Sunset Boulevard through Renton, maybe an extra 2 or 3 minutes on that drive. Northbound I-5 a little bit slow approaching South Center, especially onto those ramps onto northbound 405, and looking at a little bit of heavy volume northbound on I-5 approaching a stalled vehicle before Highway 18 and Federal Way in the right lane. In the Northwest News Radio Traffic Center, I'm Brian White.
And now, more Aging Options on Northwest News Radio with Rajiv Nagaich.
Well, Rajiv is taking a break today, so you're stuck with me, Brian Calvert, and a guy that needs no introduction. After all, he is part of that successful team there at LifePlanning Law. He is Saket Sengar, and we have had a wonderful hour talking about planning for your success coming up in retirement. Saket, before we go this morning, and we're getting a call ready for a question here, and so as we get that ready, I want to launch into this last article that you brought along, the whole idea of the surprises while aging, those unexpected truths while aging. I would imagine people get into that last season of life, and there are some things that get you down. There's some negatives that come along the way. Tell me about the things that you're finding about people still learning, still finding things to be grateful about when they approach this season.
So, like I said, this article is a great article. I really loved it because this is talking about people living longer in retirement. And as people are living longer, and I can totally relate this article with all my clients that I help with it, people are finding joys, and people find joys in little things. Like giving an example, with modern medicine, people are living longer, but people are living healthier. Right, people are having what you call hip replacement. They are having a shoulder replacement. That is making life a little bit much more pain-free. So that helps with the client. So in living in retirement with much better health, they are also talking about people are being not less worried about being. How should I say? They are more worried. They are more enjoying life, being happy, having small relationships rather than just always worried about, what's going to happen if I'm living longer, if I run out of money. So this article is totally about happiness. So that's what I will encourage people to go and read this thing. If you are, means this is all about joys of aging and living longer in this article.
Saket, I've got somebody on the line. His name is Frank, and I believe he wants to ask you a question about a financial planner. Frank, you're on the line with Saket. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, I'm looking for a financial advisor to talk to, and you mentioned one on your show. I must have been maybe last year, as someone that you worked with, you had a particular name. Do you still have somebody that you work with that you could recommend to me?
Frank, my name is Saket Sengar, and I am the certified financial advisor that helps Rajiv and his clients. So usually Rajiv is the host of the show. I come once in a while. So today Rajiv is off. That's the reason I'm filling his shoes. And if you need, I will be happy to help. The direct number to my office is 206-234-7516. 206-234-7516. And to tell a little bit about myself, I'm a certified financial advisor. I'm a fiduciary, and I only help with clients with a fee-based or fee-only advisor. So I don't work with any commission-based products, or I'm not selling any products or anything. So you will, if you choose to work with me, you will have an honest and a fiduciary advice from me. I hope that helps. The number again is 206-234-7516. Thank you.
Frank, thanks for the call. And Saket, we got to say that phrase that Rajiv always says before he leaves.
Age on.
There it is. Have a great week, everyone.
The preceding program paid for by LifePlanning Law and does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Radio management or staff.
The
The best way to learn about aging options is to go to a seminar. Go to lifepointlaw.com and select upcoming events for a seminar near you. That's lifepointlaw.com.
You know, I'm not a wealthy person, but I'd like to leave a little something to my kids when I'm gone.